You said never let me go. 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 You said never let me go.
Aligning expectations in our industry can be a challenge. Your Plan module helps teams define and agree on project standards and processes. Use built-in editing, commenting, and sharing to agree and publish your contracts. Your Scope module helps teams collaboratively define visual project scopes. Use industry standards or drag from the built-in library to define your own. Your Schedule module helps teams prioritize their own assignments and easily coordinate with others. Your Track module makes managing tasks simple. Filter your own work and just drag and drop to update progress. Your Verify module connects contract requirements to the 3D model. Now, in the same location, you can review and verify against the original requirements before publishing models for authorized use. Collaborate using any of the 5 modules, reduce waste, and finally achieve your BIM goals. And remember, don't plan late. Plan early. Plan early.
Fulcrum Plus, the next generation construction management software. One-stop shop BIM-enabled collaboration for transmittals, RFIs, notice to contractors, submissions, and all project correspondences for all parties. In-browser federation of multiple BIM models belonging to different disciplines. BIM-enabled automated version compare from the comfort of the user's browser. Geometric changes in blue. New elements added in magenta. Removed in yellow and modified in green. Protecting the interests of asset owners through automated BIM quality checks. All results visually available for further interrogation directly from the user's browser. Offers traceability and chronology for all issues from creation through to closure. Highly configurable workflows for handling different types of nonconformity. Create queries to interrogate BIM models across one or more disciplines for progress, quality, quantity takeoffs, and many more use cases. Save queries for reuse and share these with other users from other teams on the project. Comprehensive site management through iOS and Android native apps for site staff all the way through to the last person on the field. Digital quality inspections for mechanical, electrical, civil, architectural, and other disciplines. Safety observations and spot checks. Permits to work, COVID-safe compliance, site diary, and other monitoring features. Power users can use Smart Forms and Workflow Designer to configure new or modify existing forms and workflows. These can be different types of correspondences. Quality inspection forms and checklists. Permits to work. Safety and site nonconformity forms and checklists. Users can preview as they create or modify these. Publish them to the enterprise marketplace for reuse on other projects, offering standardization, repeatability, and finger on the pulse for all parties through rich, deeper, and meaningful insights. Progress, financials, nonconformity, variations, transmittals, and submissions, and many more. Fulcrum Plus, empowering experts to do what matters most, which is to design and build tomorrow, today.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum, Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, may peace be upon you. Welcome to Weekend BIM Talk with Archilantis, with the theme Data Organization in BIM Towards 2022. This last day of talk series is the last day at the Indonesia Energy and Engineering Virtual Expo 2021. Mr. Budi Santoso, as General Manager Liptaught Asia PTE Ltd, is already here, and also Mr. Lai Fun Lok as Chief Executive Officer at RAM IT Solution PTE Ltd. This webinar is held with collaboration between Pamerindo, and Archilantis through online platform IEE VEXPO.com. Here, I read the rules for participants during this webinar. The first one, all participants, microphone and camera will be turned off automatically by the host. Today's webinar session will be recorded and recording will be sent to participants 2 days after the webinar ends. For participants who will ask question or comment, mention to whom the question is addressed through the Q&A box located at the bottom of your computer screen or using chat feature on IEE VEXPO platform. Please use short sentence or to the point. Your question will be answered by the speaker according to the time available. Participants who take part in the webinar are entitled to an online certificate slide presentation material on request, which the committee will send to the participants' email address after the event is over. E-certificate will be sent 7 until 10 working days after participants fill out the survey that has been prepared by committee. Next, we will introduce our webinar moderator, Mr. Harbayu Budi, as founder and BIM manager Archilantis. We will continue the session. Mr. Harbayu Budi, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mas David. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning and good day, ladies and gentlemen. Today, our webinar agenda is Data Organization in BIM towards 2022. Talking about BIM is always related with data, where the main issue is how we process the data to maximize the goal what we want. Now, here we can learn how to make all the data impactful and we can make it to the next level of BIM. Okay. Without further ado, let's give a stage for our first speaker, Mr. Lai Von Lok, as a Chief Executive Officer at IT Solution. He is our partner in Archilantis, and Mr. Lok, you can start the presentation. The time is yours now.
Thank you very much. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, clearly.
Okay. Okay, great. So yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Lok. I'm the CEO and founder of ADRAM. I have 20 plus years in IT. I'm a CTO for 2 of my customers. I'm also a BIM manager and BIM coordinator for one of my other customers. Yeah, my specialization in BIM is I'm a CDE implementer as well as I advocate BIM adoption in the corporate sector. Some of the products and services that we provide at ADRAM are its full suite. We cover from CD implementation all the way to helping you get certified for ISO 19650. So today we're here to talk about information management in BIM, and I want to go through with you what it means by information management in BIM. Yeah, to start that, we need to know what is BIM. At its essential, BIM. People are saying that BIM is Revit, BIM is ArchiCAD. BIM could be Economus, Econex, or maybe Fulcrum. Or is BIM just 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, right? Then you also hear about clash detection, scan to BIM, BIM for FM, BIM to FM. But what does all this really mean? These are just BIM tools, common data environments, as well as BIM users. So essentially, BIM is a collection of processes, technology, tools, as well as the management of information. This is the official definition for BIM. Yeah, I will pull out the key points or keywords of what BIM is. So as I mentioned, it's a collection of processes, tools, as well as the management of information. So today's topic is how we manage this information in BIM. So in terms of processes, tools, and information, we do have this diagram from, sorry, I'm just trying to get this out of me. From ISO 19650, where they actually talk about the entire process of ISO 19650 for the built asset. And the key information that we see from here is the project information model as well as the asset information models. Although you hear the word model, it doesn't really mean 3D models. Yeah. So what does it mean by information models from this diagram? Information model means that for project at the project phase, there are progress reports, design reports, issues, correspondence, meeting minutes, cost estimates, material documentation. There's a lot of information there itself. Also for project information, there are things like fire ratings, color of the facade, materials being used, the soundproofing classifications. Yeah, all these are information. Eventually, also there's the 3D model, floors, as well as the elements required. Yeah, so all these are collections of information inside the project itself, not necessarily just the 3D model. Now, all this information needs to be captured in a single location called the common data environment, which I will cover shortly later. Yeah. So information management, again, back to the topic of today, is basically how you create, update, delete, modify information. In all of these tools, how do you manage information from the processes? How do you pass information? When do you pass the information? In what format do you pass this information? And we're talking again, not just the models. How are these information related to one another? How do you tie inspection information to an asset information inside a BIM model? Yeah. How do we give the system access to as many people as possible to help your digitalization processes, right? And when we talk about digitalization, we need to talk about the entire ecosystem, not just the BIM team. And the ecosystem involves the client, the stakeholders, people who are approving drawings or approving BIM models or approving even your payment requests, right? Project managers, even the field team members. Yeah, so it's not just the BIM team. Moving on. So information management has many layers, right? We start at the top, which is basically the processes. How do we define information being passed from one person to another person, or one party to another party? How do we agree to that? We have to sign off on this kind of documentations. And at this level, we have tools such as the BIM execution plan. Moving down the layer, we have the BIM tools. And these are tools that you're very familiar with: ArchiCADs, Revit, Bentleys, field equipment, CostX, Synchro Pro. These are all the different BIM tools that you use to create information on a daily basis. Yeah, and these are just information inside the models. Now, there are other information, as mentioned, your documentation for reports, etc. And all of this information needs to go into a common data environment. And this common data environment basically is just a place where you store, a place where you share, a place where things are secure, and there is workflows to handle all this information. All right. So essentially, these are the main layers which I will cover today. Now, at the first layer, information management for processes. What do we mean by that? Now, in BIM, there is always the saying of LOD 300, LOD 400, LOD 500. But what does that really mean? In ISO 19650, they have done away with this LOD 300, 400, 500. It's no longer in use. Instead, we are using level of information need, meaning what do you need? What kind of information do you need? What needs to be modeled? How should the model be created? Who needs to model? What are the parameters required? What are the fields required? All this needs to be captured. How do you do it? Can you use Word and Excel just to manage all this? There are tools which Archilantis and myself are able to help you to determine what is the best tool to actually develop this information requirement. Okay. Then in ISO 19650, there are file naming conventions. Now, file naming conventions with just Windows file systems cannot enforce the file naming conventions. They cannot track your version changes as well. So a tip that we propose or that we recommend that you use a proper CDE to manage your different file versions. Use a proper common data environment, a system to enforce file naming conventions. Yeah, to even use the CDE to track your modification dates so that you can track how information is being changed over time. Like this screenshot taken from one of the CDE systems, you can tell that this Revit model has changed multiple times, who has changed it, and when it was changed. All this cannot be found in your typical file folder system. What about state management? In ISO 19650, there are 4 main states where you create information. When you create information, it starts off with a WIP state, work in progress. It moves to, when it's ready to be shared, it moves to a shared state. And when it's ready to be, and when it's approved, it gets published. Now, when the information is superseded by another approved version, information needs to be archived. How do you manage all this with just Windows file system? You cannot. You need a system to manage that, such as a CDE, right? And in the CDE, you can see that systems can manage your states, whether it's WIP, shared, published, archive, the number of revisions. And if it's in a published state, no one can update it. If it's in a shared state, again, selected people can update it. And in WIP state, only the modelers can update it, for example. Yeah, so you need a system to actually manage all this information. So we're not just talking, again, not just the 3D model, but managing all this information. Now, the other processes that we want to talk about are digitalization of processes, right? Now, this is a typical flow of models being created by modelers. They will save it in Google Drive and maybe email, if the file is small, if the drawing is small, they will email it between one another, right? Then when it goes down to the client or site supervisor to request for an inspection, right? Emails will be sent to say, hey, I'm ready for an inspection. And when you do updates in terms of checklists, you would use manual forms on the construction sites to actually track what needs to be checked, right? So there's paper forms as well as Excel. Now, when this information comes back from the field, the project manager needs to compile it all into a progress report using MS Word, or maybe have his own Excel spreadsheet, right? And this is something very typical of processes, especially for as-built verification. So if you have all these different tools and emails, they're all very unstructured, and yet we are still creating large buildings using in an unstructured manner. So this definitely has to change. Now, so the tip is the whole ecosystem needs to be on a system, not just the BIM modelers in maybe a very dedicated system, you pay X amount per year, only the BIM modelers can use. And the rest of the team is kind of using unstructured way of managing the data. So the entire ecosystem needs to be on a platform using tools to help the processes, right? So a tip that we recommend is you need to find a system that can provide unlimited user licenses, because you need to really cover end-to-end of everyone in the project to be able to capture all this different information. Moving on. So you can capture all this very easily with an enterprise level common data environment. Later, I will talk about the different kinds of common data environments, yeah, where there are some just for project and some for enterprise. Now, the next layer of information management are the tools, right? So in the tools, there are the existing workflow where there's a lot of contractors, architects, which are using this common workflow, where they will use SketchUp for 3D model to get the business. Once they've got the business, they will also create the floor plans, right? Using AutoCAD, for example. And when they create the floor plans, they have to manually check these floor plans against the 3D model, dimensions, thickness of walls, etc. These are manual tasks. Yes, manual labor can be cheap, but time is not cheap. Securing your new business is not cheap. Yeah, we need to think about how we can do more with the same amount of people that we have in your organization. If you're a one-man show, two-man show, how do you take on more business if you're just doing manual checks, right? And if there's a client change to your design, you go through the entire process again. And from this, you can tell that you will be using two software. There's a lot of human errors because there's manual checking, Your time can be spent better to securing new business, right? And once all this is done and the client approves it, again, you have to go back to your 3D model to update it again. So you're doing a lot of rework, a lot of manual checks, right? And there's a high number of clashes when it goes into construction. Compare that to using BIM, the methodology for creating 3D models, to sharing information, to doing 3D coordination. You would use a single software such as ArchiCAD, right? From start to finish. There is less human errors. There's lower number of clashes when you get into construction. The quality of business is going up. We have seen cases where there are only 2 architects in the entire organization and they're taking on multi-million-dollar jobs. Why? Because they are able to streamline their processes, streamline how information is passed, and not rebuilt again every time, right? So a tip here is to make sure that information works for you, not the other way around. You don't create information all the time. You don't have the time to just keep checking everything. Software is not expensive. You can think that maybe 3,000 US is very expensive per year, but time wasted not able to secure new jobs is more expensive, right? A simple analogy, why do you use emails today? Why do you use Google? Why do you use Outlook? Why don't you use paper, right? Paper is much cheaper. So you can't really think about cost related to software alone. You must think of cost being things that will help you speed up the things that you do so you can take on more jobs, all right? Now, in the design phase, we're talking about tools again. When we look at the coordination for projects, your traditional BIM, if you're thinking, did I write this wrong? No, it's not. BIM has been around for many years already. So the common practice for traditional BIM is that when models are ready, they share it in the common data environment. Then they go into a coordination meeting, they use Navisworks, for example, and they create coordination reports using MS Word and Excel. They manually track, right? And when it is sent to the modelers have to manually find all this information, right? So this is very time consuming. So even to put in simple tools to automate this in a traditional BIM is quite challenging in our experience. And in this sense, you are using 4 different software, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a lot of human errors. You can't really find things. And again, the time spent just to find things is very high, right? Compare that with better BIM. How do we do BIM better, right? You share the 3D models in a common data environment. You use the same system for the coordination meeting. You note down all your issues in the same system. And when you coordinate with the modelers, you use tools or plugins such as a PCF manager to share the information back. So you streamline the number of manual administrative tasks that you have to do on a project team, right? And you have to look at an open information architecture. What do we mean by that? When you are in a project, there's so many different teams. Every team will use the software of their choice based on familiarity as well as cost, right? So you can't just work on maybe all Autodesk suites. You can't do that. Some will prefer to use Tekla because it's better in structural design, structural analysis. So how do you work in that kind of environment? So you have to think about an open information architecture and not a closed one, right? So some of the tips and recommendations that we have for this is there is BIM and there is better BIM. So we don't just do BIM because the client wants BIM, but we have to do it in such a way that it helps us, not create more problems for us, right? Look at open architectures to allow different disciplines to choose the right tool of choice for the right outcome. Now, a lot of people like to use Revit, and most of them are related to contractors. Now, architects, they like to draw flowing lines and all that. So ArchiCAD is actually a better tool for them. Now, you're saying that let's standardize everything and use Revit. But then again, that is not the best tool for the architects. Now, we have to use the right tool for the right team. So we cannot enforce it. And therefore, you need to look at an open architecture for all your information management. Now, remember, if you are doing one project, it might be fine to just do a closed architecture. But if you're doing multiple projects, if you're an owner and you have different projects on different kinds of software, because the times have changed, 3 years, 4 years later, your software has changed. what do you do then if you're all locked in? So you need to have an open architecture for your information management. Moving on. Now, in the construction phase, right, this is a traditional process where you go from design to the operations phase, right? How information is managed. At the design phase, yes, you have a design common data environment. You store all your data in BIM 360, for example. When you go into the fabrication phase, fabricators may not use BIM 360, right? They may have their own internal system. Then they'll start to use Excel spreadsheets to track what has been fabricated. And when you move to the construction phase, the construction management team may have their own construction CDE. Maybe it's Econex. Now, this itself has already got 2 different CDEs. What do you do then? There's a lot of information that is in different systems now. And when you hand over, the operations team have their own system, the facility management system, FM system. Now, you have a problem in a traditional environment where there's no continuity of information from design all the way to operations. Information is being extracted, exported, and imported again. Sure, there are tools that help you import and export things easily, but why waste time? Yeah, information is rebuilt every time we move from one stage to another stage. Compare that to an integrated digital delivery. And this is something that is being pushed heavily by the Singapore government. Now, this may not be right for Indonesian market, but you need to think along these lines, where a single system, an enterprise level common data environment that can handle all parties, different companies, from design to operations. So as an owner, you are able to see where things are at any given point in time. There is no loss of information because you have too many systems involved in your processes. Okay. Some of the recommendations that we have, the owner needs to establish their own CDE. Now, what do we mean by that? Do we say that for project A, the owner says, okay, you need to use CDE A. For project B, CDE B. You cannot have 2 different CDEs for 2 different projects. It does not make sense for the owner. The owner needs one CDE that is suitable for long term, right? And it needs to cater for different projects, again, different times. 5 years later, software changes, people change. What do you do then? Yeah. Now, the owner also need to appoint an enterprise information manager. Now, some of you may not heard of this before. It sounds very big, but what does it really mean? It means that a person who is in charge, something like a chief information officer for technology, information manager for construction, for your business. If you're creating projects or delivering projects all the time, you need to know how to manage that information. You cannot pass it on to the IT team who have very little knowledge or very little expertise in the construction. You need someone who understands the business, who understands the different stages, what kind of information needs to be passed from one stage to another stage, what kind of information is important. So the owner needs to appoint your own enterprise information manager to oversee, to plan, to strategize how information will be managed for all projects, not just one project. At the operations phase, we're talking still about tools. How complex is it to manage the asset information by the FM team? So we've created all these fancy 3D models in BIM 360, in AutoCAD, in Autodesk Revit. How is the FM team going to use that? Are they going to learn Revit? How are they going to update all this all the specs, all the warranty information? How do they do it? Are you expecting them to update it in Revit? No. The answer is you need to understand how complex it is to actually manage information in the first place before you decide what software to use. Now, information complexity is either high, medium, or low, right? These are simple ways of defining it. Low meaning information errors rarely happen. And if there are mistakes, there is very little impact, no problem. High is information errors very likely to happen because you have a lot of manual processes. And if mistakes are made, the cost in terms of manpower and time to correct that is very high. So when you think about information management, you need to think about The more people that are involved in touching that information, the higher the complexity of managing information is. The more information that you need to do QA, QC, because you can export and import, you still need to QA and QC the data. So the higher the complexity of managing the information. If information is duplicated, your information management complexity goes up. If you copy and paste, because it's so easy to copy and paste and maybe manpower is cheap, and okay, just copy and paste. But if you do that a lot, your complexity is higher. Copy and paste also will result in errors. Yeah. Now, why do I bring this up? Now, what I want to help you understand about managing information is a simple analogy about you, your identity number, as well as your address. Okay, so this is simple information. And you have moved to a new house, right? You bought a new place and you have to change your address. How do you change your address? You have to go to different organizations to change your address, correct? You have to go to government agencies, maybe the police department, the passport, you have to change that data. And then you have to go to the banks to tell them that you have moved so that you get the latest bank statements, or even your credit card bills come to you on time. Then if you are at the hospital, you also have to change your addresses, right? So there are many entities that you need to update that information. And all this information is tied to your primary key, right? Which is your IC number or identity card number. So in terms of information management complexity, like I mentioned just now, this is kind of a medium level of complexity where you have to change your address in multiple locations, 3 locations in this case. Your uniqueness of the information is your IC number, so that's quite guaranteed. But there's no traceability between the change. That means if you change at the government agency, the banks doesn't know that the government knows that you have changed, right? There's no link between these two entities. There's no link between the different systems. Now, imagine if there is a super app that when you change your address, this app handles the changes to different agencies, the banks, as well as the hospitals. So here, information complexity is so low. It's so easy. You just go to the app, you change your address, all is done. So when we come back to construction again, and operations management, and the tools of managing information management, the current practice for creating asset information to be handed over to facility management are stored in 3 different locations. 1, 2, 3. 1, the facility management would have the asset data, your asset register, whether it's in Excel or maybe in a common data environment or in paper format is another location. Your 3D models, some of the BIM models I have seen have got warranty information, serial numbers, manufacturer information. So here you have 3 different locations of where asset information resides. Okay. Now, this is high complexity because if there is a warranty information that needs to change in the operations phase, where do you change it? Do you just change it at facility management and ignore updating your 3D model? Do you change the model of your asset in facility management, and because you are not familiar with Revit, you can't update the 3D model with the asset model number? What happens is if you do this, you will then start to lose information traceability over time. Information links, yes, you can put your URL inside the 3D model. Very simple to copy paste the URL. But as we know, systems change. When systems change, all the links will be broken. What do you do then? Do you open up all your 3D models and just copy paste new URLs? Who's going to do that? The FM team? Or do you have to hire the Revit modeler to do it? So you have to think about all this when you manage information. The better way to do it in the operations phase is to actually have, again, one single super app. And this super app is already existing in today's environment. You have enterprise common data environments where you have a master asset register. It's all in the system. It's probably linked to a facility management software, or maybe even have facility management modules within the whole software itself. You then have smart 3D viewers to link asset information to 3D viewers. So what you need to do, like what we talked about, the primary key being your IC number, is Your primary key is now your asset number alone. This is the only information that you need in your 3D model to be able to link with all the other relevant asset information that you have in your common data environment, your specs data, your inspection records, your warranty information. You only need this one in there, right? The current practice is to put all this information inside the model. As you can see, the power rating, heat rating, yes, some of them may be required to stay in the model for various reasons, and that's fine, right? And you have other information such as the URL to the operating manuals, the URLs to the product catalog. All this information, if you put just within the model, inside one of these Revit parameters, you need to think about how to manage this, how to change it if something changes. So what is the best practice for that? You need to have, as you can see, there's many of this. Again, CDE, 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 CDE. You need a proper CDE, an enterprise class CDE that can manage the information from the model to your FM system. Yeah, I won't go too much into details with this, but you need to be able to segmentize your information to the right system. You cannot put all your information in a 3D model because that's just wrong. All right. Now, moving on to the last layer is the CDE, the common data environment. I've been talking about that quite a fair bit. What is the CDE, right? Coming back to this diagram from ISO 19650, the CDE manages data end to end, and not just end to end, not just project to asset phase or operations phase, but back again when you do modifications or alterations or additions or phase 2 or phase 3 of your project, right? This common data environment doesn't last during the project phase itself. It lasts throughout the life of the asset. And if you manage multiple assets, you need one environment to manage all their assets. Okay. Now, the definition of a CDE in ISO 19650 is very simple: agreed source of information through managed processes. You collect all this information, let's all agree on a place to store all this data and have some kind of managed process. Sounds very simple, very open. What does it mean? So a traditional CDE, if you have not used any of the BIM CDEs, would be something like this. You have email to correspond, you have Google Drive or maybe SharePoint or an FTP server or Dropbox, right? Everyone, it matches this requirement. It's an agreed source. Everyone has access to it. It's very good for small contracts. It's very good for sharing. But the definition of ISO 19650 for CDE is through a managed process. What does that mean? It means that your security needs to be good. Your managed processes from, as I mentioned, WIP, shared, published, archived, those information needs to be managed. Who has access to it when it's already archived? Who can see it? Who cannot see it? Who needs to be able to change it, right? Usable in operations phase. All this data that is in the Google Drive cannot be used in the operations phase because operations phase have a different way of storing information. You cannot trace information changes. All the changes that you put in Google Drive, yes, maybe you see version 1, version 2, but then again, what created that change? Who created that change based on what request? How do you link a request to a change, right? So the traditional CDE will not work in moving forward in 2022 as we're talking about. A proper CDE has got all these things and is suitable for medium to large contracts, even small contracts. If you have the will to actually implement a proper digitalization in your projects, you can use it even for small contracts. It's very good for sharing. It's very good for security. There are managed processes. There's workflows that you can put into place where file names are enforced. User access is controlled, right? And there is clear traceability of information, meaning there is an RF, a request for change. It's documented. It's in the system. And it leads to, and there's a trace to a model being changed. You need a system to manage that. And you cannot do it with just your traditional CDE. Okay. Moving on. So again, a CDE needs to be thought of as an enterprise system. What do I mean by an enterprise system? Now, in any business, there are different functions, business functions. There's finance, procurement, manufacturing, there's IT department, there's sales and marketing department, right? And then of course there's the construction, right, in any business. So what kind of systems do these different business functions use? For finance, there is, I think, quite famous, the SAP, Oracle's, Arebas of the world. Manufacturing, there's SAP, there's Oracle. For IT, there's ServiceNow, BMC Remedy, sales and marketing. All of these different business functions have a system. What is the construction system then? It is your CDE. It is not emails. It is not Excel spreadsheets. You cannot run a construction business on Excel. Okay, now think about this again, this question. Does your company change accounting systems if your project changes? Small project, you use one accounting system. Bigger project, you use a different accounting system. No, you can't. You can't run a business like that. It's a nightmare. Same thing for construction. You cannot change CDEs from one project to another project. Yes, you decide on one CDE for all your projects. If the CDE is not good enough, you have to change the whole CDE for all your projects. You cannot do it project by project. Now, another question. Can a bank run on Excel spreadsheets? Of course not. Your money will be lost because there's a lot of human errors, right? Spreadsheets have no traceability. Yet, in the construction business, we think we can run the construction business with Excel. So far, we have done so, but has it been effective? Have you lost data? Has the person who created the Excel spreadsheet left the company and you have to create new information, new Excel spreadsheets again? So there are project-based common data environments and there are enterprise-based common data environments. What do I mean by that? A project-based is not able to manage multiple contracts simultaneously. You can only do it for one project. Your communications are not federated. It's all loose. It's in email. It's probably in maybe BIM 360, and then another project is in email, in Outlook. It's not in a dedicated system. You have all kinds of BIM authoring software that needs to be used, but the project can only use one kind, maybe from one vendor suite. And when you want to integrate with other vendors using IFC, you have issues, information loss or whatever it is. Project-based software, project-based CDE is not suitable for all your users. It may only be suitable for just one team, which is maybe the BIM team, and you think you're doing BIM, where else you're not managing information for your entire project. You need a system that can span across the project team, your ops team, the finance department, senior management, subcontractors, everyone in the ecosystem. Your project system, project-based CDE, may not be deployable on-premise because there's a lot of subscription-based, on the cloud-based software. If you have this kind of software in the cloud, how are you going to integrate with systems in your environment? How are you going to integrate with your other accounting systems, for example? You cannot. So this software, which are on the cloud, may be cheap again, but it may not work for you. It may just work just for that project. Everyone's happy, deliver the project, but you are not managing your information well. Okay, you do not have e-forms and workflows. Whereas an enterprise class software, enterprise class CDE will meet all these requirements. Yeah, and I strongly urge you to look for enterprise class software. Now, in summary, I know I've gone through this like a bullet train, and I'm happy to take more questions later. But in summary, if you have not started on BIM, you have not started thinking about information management, a simple tip recommendation would be, if you're using SketchUp and AutoCAD, replace it with a proper BIM software, such as ArchiCAD, Revit, or whatever it suits your business needs. Don't keep doing SketchUp, AutoCAD. It will not help you in the long run. There are other businesses who are already switching to this Revit or ArchiCAD software, and they're doing very, very well. Yeah, do not be the last ones left behind. If you have started on the BIM journey, right, these are your recommendations. Define your level of information need, and don't use LOD 300-400 because it's just very confusing, and it's not ISO 19650. You need to invest in an enterprise common data environment, not just a project common data environment. Think about it as a whole, as a business itself. How do you manage your business using the common data environment as your dedicated system. Like we talked about finance and the accounting system, what is your construction system? Okay, it cannot be Excel. Now, keep your information management complexity low. The more places you need to change information, the higher your complexity, the more costly it becomes. And you would think that information management becomes expensive. It's expensive because the complexity is high. There's a lot of Q&A to check data, exported, imported, manual checking of information. If you have that, your cost is high. Make sure you get your ISO 19650 certified. Now, this is something that is just coming online in the last couple of years. If you have ISO 9000 for your construction, why not have ISO 19650 for information management for BIM? Okay, and the last recommendation would be BIM for FM should be defined as early as possible, because when you think about it, you have to start with the end in mind, right? What does the FM need? If you're not doing what the FM needs, therefore, whatever you're creating today will not be suitable for facility management. When you define BIM for facility management, that means how is BIM going to be used for facility management? Early, you can do BIM to FM, that means exporting the data or creating the BIM data so that when you hand over to FM team, it becomes easy to manage. And lastly, please join us on BIM Talks organized by Archilantis. I believe there is a program that they are coming up with for next year. Do join us, do learn a bit more about information management. And as I mentioned, today's 40 minutes is definitely not enough to cover all the grounds. And we're open to listening to you for more Q&A as well as joining us in the future BIM Talks. And with that, I thank you for all your time, and I'll hand this back to Pak Bayu.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Locke. We have a good, meaningful insight here from Mr. Locke. He said about please do BIM as early as you can. Well, this is very, very insightful. And then maybe for our experience for BIM is very, very important to do BIM as early as we can. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Locke, for your insight. And ladies and gentlemen, to show them the time, the next session will be Mr. Budi Santoso as a general manager from Liktop Asia Private Limited. Budi Santoso is he has a solution for how to we manage a good CDE with his platform. Before we go to Mr. Budi, please from organizer can sharing the video first, and then after that, Mr. Budi Santoso, you can start your session. Okay, please.
Thank you.
For the exhibitor, please share the video, Mas Hanung and team. Hello, Mas Hanung and team, please share the video first. Wait, Mas Hanung, Mas David. Hello, Mas Hanung, Mas David. Please share the video first, and then Pak Budi can start the session.
In that case, should I share the video?
Okay, maybe something problem for the system.
I think technical problem on Mas Hanum's side. Yeah.
Pak Budi, you can start the session.
Okay. Yeah.
Time is yours. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pak Bayu. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us in this Saturday morning to have this data organization in BIM 2022 talk. Before I start, let me quickly share my screen and I'll share the video. First, what we mentioned earlier. Is the video coming through?
Yeah, good.
Okay, let me try the sound, okay?
Yeah.
Is the sound okay?
Wait, still not hearing?
Okay, let me stop sharing. In that case, I'm gonna share together with.
blue. New
Yeah.
elements added in magenta. Removed in yellow and modified in green.
I'm sorry, Mas Hanung, maybe we
Protecting
can
the
play from
interests
the
of
beginning.
asset owners through all.
Mas Hanung, please share from the beginning.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Fulcrum Plus, the next generation construction management software. One-stop shop BIM-enabled collaboration for transmittals, RFIs, notice to contractors, submissions, and all project correspondences for all parties. In-browser federation of multiple BIM models belonging to different disciplines. BIM-enabled automated version compare from the comfort of the user's browser. Geometric changes in blue. New elements added in magenta. Removed in yellow and modified in green. Protecting the interests of asset owners through automated BIM quality checks. All results visually available for further interrogation directly from the user's browser. Offers traceability and chronology for all issues from creation through to closure. Highly configurable workflows for handling different types of nonconformity. Create queries to interrogate BIM models across one or more disciplines for progress, quality, quantity takeoffs, and many more use cases. Save queries for reuse and share these with other users from other teams on the project. Comprehensive site management through iOS and Android native apps for site staff all the way through to the last person on the field. Digital quality inspections for mechanical, electrical, civil, architectural, and other disciplines. Safety observations and spot checks. Permits to work, COVID-safe compliance, site diary, and other monitoring features. Power users can use Smart Forms and Workflow Designer to configure new or modify existing forms and workflows. These can be different types of correspondences. Quality inspection forms and checklists. Permits to work. Safety and site nonconformity forms and checklists. Users can preview as they create or modify these. Publish them to the enterprise marketplace for reuse on other projects, offering standardization, repeatability, and finger on the pulse for all parties through rich, deeper, and meaningful insights. Progress, financials, nonconformity, variations, transmittals, and submissions, and many more. Fulcrum Plus, empowering experts to do what matters most, which is to design and build tomorrow, today.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I think just to repeat a short introduction of what we have. My name is Budi Santo. Yeah, commonly lots of people will say Budi Santoso. Yeah. I am the general manager for Liptot Asia. I'm gonna introduce the company and the product that we are bringing to the market in our slides later. To do that, let me share my slides first. All right. Is it coming through okay? Yep. Okay. Yep. Thank you very much.
Clear, really clear. Okay, good.
Thank you. Yeah. So our company name is Liptot. We are a company that's founded in New Zealand about 8 to 9 years ago. We are primarily a software provider. However, in the past 5 years, we've been investing a lot and focusing in the area of built environment or architectural environment, engineering and construction space. I think the idea is pretty simple. If you look at what we see on the screen, you have the physical building itself. Then on the iPad, you see the digital buildings. And then on the mobile phones, on the mobile phone representation, you see the modules that we have. So basically, what the basic premise of the idea is having something built physically we must have the digital representations in the digital world. Okay, I think recently with the announcement from Facebook becomes Meta, and then where they are trying to focus more energy and resources into virtual reality, things like that, the line between what is physical and what is digital being closely merged. And I guess it's the same when it comes to construction. Construction of physical assets, you will need the physical, the digital representation eventually in the digital space. How do we do that? Okay, our mission statement, our purpose-driven vision is that provide this integrated digital delivery platform or IDD platform, and then we transform how the projects are designed all the way from design. How do we build it? How we deliver, regulated, and subsequently operated by asset operators. Okay, can be asset operators, authorities, contractors, etc. We are turning this vision that started off as a vision into a reality through this Fulcrum HQ. Okay, we call it Fulcrum HQ because as our capabilities grow, we have various modules and functions that plugs into Fulcrum, and then all this complements the integration of the digital delivery. Okay, just some notable projects that we have in Singapore currently. JTC, we are involved in 2 master planning projects, Jurong Innovation District and Woodlands North Coast. We are basically delivering a master plan of industrial estate. Typical master plan runs 30 to 40 years. So currently we are starting off with the first few buildings and infrastructure projects. It's going to continue for the next 25 years. Okay, that is over an area of 600 over hectares. With LTA, we are delivering D156. Basically, that's a new IDD platform. It is an enterprise CDE solutions for our Land Transport Authority. It is LTA in Jakarta, is like PT MRT Jakarta. So they are building train stations and rail stations. So the JRL and CRL is 2 new lines that is slated for construction over the next 15 to 20 years. This one covers 60 stations with construction budget more than $60 billion. Everything is going to be delivered through the enterprise CDE called Fulcrum, called Insights, powered by Fulcrum. Together with another authority, we are doing CornetX. CornetX is something like your submissions portal. So basically, if you have drawings, you have design models. Oh, by the way, Singapore is requiring any developers or any architects to submit their design in BIM moving forward in 2 years' time. All design no longer entertained on 2D drawings. It has to be on the 3D drawings. And this collaboration platform enabled by Fulcrum can receive the processing of 3D drawings, process it among the agencies, the parties, and we can apply AI. That's where the automated model checker comes in. I'm going to touch a bit more on that later. Okay, public housing under HDB. We also, since Fulcrum as a product can be easily deployed in the secure cloud, we also have a chance to work with the military. The SDA is the Defense Science and Technology Agency under Ministry of Defense. So we are deploying Fulcrum in a very secure backend system to enable them to deliver top secret projects. Singapore Power, this is an electrical power company in Singapore, delivering new substations in Singapore using Fulcrum too. And also we work with our private developers, SolBuild CES, and recently Fraser's Property Thailand to deliver the logistic compound, industrial warehouses, etc. Okay, so we have the range of projects that we have been involved in, and there are a lot of learning points, especially with what Mr. Locke shared earlier, in terms of how do you digitalize your processes, how do you start to use an enterprise solution of CDE to actually deliver the infrastructure projects. Okay, just to repeat a bit on what Mr. Locke says, but I'm presenting it slightly differently. If we talk about the email, Excel, etc., correspondences, this is the graph on the left-hand side. Okay, at any point of time, there's no traceability, and yes, there is your email signature, etc. But to find that there is a certain set of challenges. And what happens if that particular person resigns or no longer with the organizations? Straight away, you can't pull the information from him anymore, him or her. So a CDE itself will be a centralized common data environment sitting in the middle, and everybody who works within it basically logs into the system and then transact within it. I said transact, I use the word transaction because approving something, sending information, approving a design, rejecting a design, commenting a design, all those are considered transactions, all right? And each of these transactions within the CDE is traceable and auditable. Okay. If I take that representation slightly bigger, all right, if we are not talking about just one organization, but if you look at the whole ecosystem itself, this is how it looks like. The CDE still sits in the middle. You have the designers who are consultants, sub-consultants, specialists, fire consultants, etc. They submit everything through CDE. There is the regulatory part, the one who gives permit, the one who approves designs, etc. They sit on the regulatory part. There is also the construction delivery guys, the contractor, subcontractor, specialist vendors, etc. Supply chain, your aluminum window supplier, your precast supplier, your rebar supplier or concrete supplier, they sit on the supply chain. Then you have the site itself, and then lastly, the asset managers and operators. So what happened is that each of these all will plug back to the CDE. Okay. When Mr. Locke mentioned the enterprise solution for CDE, it doesn't cover just one organization, but if it's able to be open enough to capture other organizations that is part of that project to be plugged in, that will be ideal. If, let's say, we take the idea of that use cases, your CDE will be at the bottom of it. This is the big bucket of data and information. And during design, manufacturing, fabrication, digital construction, asset and delivery, each of these you will have different use cases. I said use cases because the way people use the information that's available in the CDE, they use it slightly differently. Okay, for example, if I'm a QS or I'm contracts, I'll look at the CDE that I want to enable procurement process. Procurement, the basis of it is, again, the technical drawings or the technical model, the 3D model. But the purpose of it is to send out the tender requirements or the quotations and get input on that tender requirements or proposal as a proposal back to me, and then I can award them. But that's it, all right? Then when it moves on to the construction site, after this subcontractor or vendor is appointed, when it's during construction, what I want to know is that your progress of work, whether or not you have delivered the material as quoted, whether or not those materials are already installed. So the information are the same, the use of it is slightly different, but then it still warrants for it to be located within the same CDE, because information that gets passed during tender or during design, I can use it during construction. If your platforms are different, there's no such continuity. And at any point of time, there will be change of hands of information. This change of hands in data or information will mean that there will be loss of data, loss of information, or inaccuracy arising from that change. All right. So touching on ISO 19650, basically, again, this is flow of data, flow of information. Basically, this data means this. At the end of the day, who to benefit is the asset operators at the back of it. This one may be the largest files that you want to give them, because that's an as-built drawing plus the warranty plus the FM information, etc., etc. This may be, for example, I tell you size-wise, maybe 500 gigabyte or 1 terabyte, for example, or 1 terabyte, right? But when they begin in the beginning, When the owner say, okay, I'm going to call a tender, the consultant will just have concept design. The information, you don't have specialist information yet. I may have, okay, there's a door here, there's a window there, but I haven't specified what door, what window to be put in. So information here rather small, maybe 100 megabyte. Okay, just an extreme example. So data itself continuously gets built up from the beginning all the way until asset operators, from 100 megabyte to 1 terabyte. Just imagine if this all happens outside of a CDE. It will be handing over upon handing over upon handing over upon handing over. Imagine the amount of effort that is required to maintain the quality of that data. But nowadays we have that CDE. We can specify what data information we require, apply the quality control such as 19654 ISO, and then everybody who are involved in here just need to follow, right? Well, the requirement to them is captured in the tender from the beginning, and they have no choice but to follow. And if they follow, at the end of the day, you have a meaningful asset information management. All right. So that's the basic premise of why we are standardizing information, why we are standardizing data, and how do we hand it over at the last. Okay, so this is example of how we are delivering it. So we again, this is about having a CDE. You eliminate the need to have a fragmented data handing over. As built submissions, you have submissions. So from you have communications, collaborations, you have verification of as built, you have approval of as built drawing, you have defects inspection, you have closure of defects inspection. All these are captured within a CDE. Okay. Instead of like this, from one platform to another platform to another platform, you go like this. Everything within one platform, and just pull it through to as built register. Okay. And everything here records actions, approvals, process, who approves the teams, the asset information schedule, inspection checklist, email correspondence, everything resides within the same platform. Okay. This is basically the same thing. Capturing the complexity of the process, the number of information that you need to hand over, and then how we simplify it. Okay. So no longer a fragmented kind of multi-environment, but a very coordinated one. These are the modules within Fulcrum itself. We have the modern digital workspace, BIM 2D viewer, design sync for nowadays it's lesser used because currently everything that to sync up the information can happen within the platform itself. AI for data analytics, field items, we are also available in iOS and Android so that the form can be brought to the site easily. And then interoperability, everything that we built here is based on APIs. So it is open enough to collaborate with other vendors. Okay, the range of type of projects that we are involved in and how we are involved in Auckland, in Singapore, gives us the necessary background and experience to actually deliver an enterprise solutions to the clients. Okay. The second part of my presentation, I'm going to just show you a bit of demonstration. I know we have been talking a lot about CDE, etc., and what I really want to do through this second part is just to show you how it is actually, how does the platform look like? What is ISO 19654? How do we enforce it in the system, etc. Okay, so this is a demo site that I'm logged in as a user. So basically, if you look at this, let me start with a very simple one. So in here, basically, each person who collaborates within this is assigned a project. The project is a workspace, all right? So within the workspace, anything that people transact the other team members should be able to see. Okay, and the idea of correspondence in this case, right? It is not like so this is a correspondence, for example. It is slightly different from email. The reason is this: if I click on that correspondence, I have info, I have files, I have issues. Okay, so any replies, any kind of discussion, any issues created in this, and the view itself, everything happens within the system. Okay, and this system is not software based. There's no need for any downloading. Everything is cloud based. As long as there's internet connection, we are good. Okay, so before I go to the 3D viewer, let me touch on the model library first, document library. How do we enforce ISO 19654? I think earlier Locke has mentioned about ISO 19654. Within ISO, you need to actually enforce how you name your file, correct? So if I upload one file, immediately the system will prompt you, okay, what's the contract number? Okay, location, role, who is sending this? I'm a geotech engineer, for example, discipline, etc., etc. Okay, so we do not, by enforcing this, right, we are actually asking people to define your metadata from the get-go. When you put the file into the system, it's already defined. Okay, we do not need to do it manually or things like that. The system will help you to guide you to implement this ISO 19654 that I can save. Then I'll do a check-in. Yeah, the files is checked in. Okay, that's good. So I do not change the name itself. If you look at this, the 20210329, this is my file name. I don't change the file name. Okay, that's all good. What I did was I applied the ISO into this. Okay, and within the ISO, why I apply this ISO, so that whenever I check out this file, modify this file, and check it back, there's only one file here. There's only a single source of truth here. All right. And how do I check the version then? Okay. For version, I come here, version history. These are all the previous version of this file that was uploaded. At any point of time I want to download, I can download. Okay. So in the past, the practice is this: whenever there's a new file, let's say architectural site plan _ revision 1, then you'll just get updated revision 2, revision 3, revision 4, revision 5. But the problem is that how do we know which is the latest revision? Correct? If let's say it is handled by one person, the best guess is, okay, I'll contact that person, which revision is the latest. Okay, then they'll need to share with you. In this, you don't need to do that. Everything that gets uploaded here will be the latest one if they're using the practice that has been set up. All right. So that is the shortcut on ISO 19654, and within that, actually, then you know what that file is shared for you for. Okay. Let's talk about other parts of the data then. What about my model? Okay, let me come back then to earlier correspondences or design submissions, I think. Then I'm going to touch on BIM currently. So we have a very powerful inbuilt BIM viewer, PDF viewer too. But in today's demonstration, let me touch on IFC model, 3D model. So the platform has a capability for 3D image rendering. Okay, directly on the browser. There's no need for download. Okay, if it's a model, a 3D model such as this, for the practitioners, I think this is something that is very common. All right. So what happened is that this model contains information. Okay, very different from 2D drawing. In 3D drawing, aside from capturing the shape in 3D, why BIM is so powerful is because they capture the parametric information. Okay, this parametric information is pretty much almost unlimited. You can capture warranty information. If this is a slab, let's say, what paint the slab is, what code you use for the paint, etc., etc. How detailed you model your 3D model is how detailed you capture the information. But the problem is that the question is that when you have detailed it to that detail, then how do you retrieve those information? That's where we come in. Okay, if I do a simple query, let's say based on special, okay, I only have level 1, level 2. Okay, level 1, then isolate level 1. This level 1. All right, bathroom, kitchen, living room. Oh, I don't want to isolate. Let me show me isolate level 2 instead. Then this is level 2. Okay, then what about if, let's say, okay, let me minimize this. What about if I want to actually hide and unhide certain things? Yes, possible. I come back to home. Okay, rotate it a bit so they can see here. Then I just want to hide this. Hide level 2, hide level 1. Yep. Okay, so viewer is okay. I mean, we have a very capable viewer. All right. Next, slicing and dicing. Slice Y. Okay. Slicer. So viewer function, etc. is quite powerful. There's no issue on viewer function. Okay, then you may question is that next, what about per product? Yes, on per level we can do that. Per special, per space we can do that. Per product we can do that. Doors. Okay, but isolate just the doors. Okay, these are all the doors in the model. Okay, materials of the doors. Okay, I can see all the materials on the door. But if, let's say, I don't want to do it this way, I want to instead do a search based on parameter that I know. Be it again, whether it's a door, that's door, a window, those are windows, slab, etc. All right, column, no column. Okay, fine. So if no column means there's no attributes here that's defined as column. Okay. So once I search again, the same thing, I can on and off it. I can change the color. I can change to orange. I can change to other color, so on and so forth. Right. So then the next question is, okay, then but what do I use this information from? Okay, two things. First thing is that let's talk about coordination first. If I receive this drawing and I see this step is rather weird, why is it there? Okay, what I can do is that, okay, I'll create new issues, send it back to the people. Okay, I want to, these are the previous issues created. Okay, I'll just refer to it. Okay, what happened is that here, there is a created at this is an issue, this is the viewpoint. So what we do is that we actually save the viewpoint itself as BCF. All these issues that is created in here are saved as BCF. Okay, so the first primary function that we have for this is that for issue coordination. Okay, issue coordination is something that we want to handle earlier as CDE. You have everything together and then you push around this information to other people and you want to coordinate within here. All right. So this BCF, you can also export it out and then bring it back to your native software, maybe Revit or whatever it is, to resolve the issue and put it back into the system. Okay. Secondly, I want to be able to query, let's say schedule for plumbing system. I don't have that, it's fine. I create new query. I want, again, let's say, just show me the product of doors. Then I will see all the doors. Again, highlight all the doors, apply the color. Okay. And then I want to export all these doors. Export it to Excel. Export all data. So again, depending on how we want to use the 3D viewer, we can slice and dice, we can query, we can do so many things with it. And in here, you can do area, you can do volume, and then you can export it to Excel. Subsequently, maybe as BOQ, as design coordination, as area calculation, etc., etc. Okay. Okay, so that's on 3D viewer. 3D viewer supports IFC type, PDF viewer. We have design coordination. We have quality management system. We have safety management system. We are able to integrate with biometric system. And then we also have a precast management system that's able to generate QR code within here. So when we talk about CDE, it is really an end-to-end. This is a QR code. Because QR code, maybe then you print this out, stick it to the precast element, and then you can call it back from the system by scanning the QR code. So when we talk about a CDE per se, okay, the data itself, everything that you see here is data that is captured by our platform. And with data, you can subsequently easily filter. I want to filter it based on plot. I want to arrange it based on certain thing, or I want to drag it on to a data analytics, such as, for example, this one is how many workers reporting per day to the site. Okay. So when we are talking about CDE, it's really end-to-end. I've shown you ISO, which is used during design. I've shown you site items, which is used during the construction itself. Precast for manufacturing, coordination, so on and so forth. And then lastly is this kind of data analytics. I think I have another example of data analytics that's more powerful. Let me just pull it out. So what you see here is actually another sample of data analytics that we do for projects. It can be integrated with maps. So if I have two projects here, imagine if this is a train station, I just integrate this map into train station. With a click of a button, it brings me to the overall project progress of that station. Correct? What's the safety? What's the financials? And all this data is pulled from the platform. Okay. There's no longer a requirement where, okay, I got to populate it and Excel push it to the BI. No, all this information pulled from the platform real time. And as people are building information in the platform, building data in the platform, it gets pulled out as data analytics here. Right? So savings on manpower, who needs to do all this reporting, savings on paper, they need to print out all this for the management reporting. All these are taken care with a single source of truth in the platform itself. Monitoring of submissions, for example. So with that, actually, I've actually more or less covered what we need to cover today from our product point of view. And maybe with that, I will hand this back to Babayu. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Abudi Susanto,
Yeah.
for the insight. Okay, now time what we waiting for, we will have a Q&A session. So all participants can give your question by typing the question at the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Do the lot of question, maybe we are so very sorry if we cannot answer all of your question. Okay, maybe there is a question for now. Mas Anung and team. Okay, maybe before we give the question from the floor. Wait. Wait. Maybe I wanna ask, but I can explain in English. Maybe on bahasa first. Mungkin maybe Pak Budi can help me for the explain this.
Ya, silakan Pak Bayu. Ya.
Oke. Jadi Bapak Ibu dan teman-teman sekalian, nih Pak Budi kebetulan juga bisa bahasa Indonesia, dia juga
Yeah.
bahasa Indonesia, cuma beliau berkarir di Singapura untuk
Iya.
Oke, Pak Budi, mungkin ini juga kaitannya ke Mr. Locke juga. Perihal ini kan terus terang kan isu CDE ini kan sudah mulai di Indonesia nih, bahwa kita dulu era-era awal-awal BIM kan masih euforia tentang modeling BIM lah kan gitu kan. Sekarang kan bicara tentang okay, what next after we model something gitu kan. Lebih ke bagaimana kita memperkaya informasi yang ada yang ada di modeling itu agar bisa dimanfaatkan lebih lanjut kepada stage-stage selanjutnya. Nah, Pak Budi sendiri terhadap platform di top ini, dari platform ini, bagaimana sih melihat perkembangan ini dengan kaitannya dengan Open BIM itu sendiri, yang kaitannya juga berarti bisa bisa dikaitkan dengan workflow dari ISO 19650. Mungkin ada ya, dan juga mungkin saya akan kaitkan juga pendapat dari Mr. Locke, apakah suatu workflow CDE ini apa harus berpatokan selalu dengan ISO 19650, apakah bisa dengan customisasi sesuai dengan kebutuhan proyeknya, atau mungkin dari Pak Budi dulu, atau after itu boleh Mr. Locke, silakan Pak Budi.
Ya, mungkin saya share dulu dengan Mr. Locke pertanyaannya.
Ya,
Yeah.
boleh.
So, hi Locke. The question is about how do we see or perceive the trend in with this BIM and then CDE? Then what's the next? What's the future? With all this standardization that we are bringing in, how do we see the trend is going on? And then the second question is that with standardized quality of data, is ISO 19650 the only standards that's out there? And whether that ISO 19650 is actually configurable or customizable per client or per owner or asset owner. Yeah.
All right.
So maybe I'll take on the questions first, then I'll pass on to you.
Yep.
All right. Jadi I'll answer in Indonesia ya.
Oke.
Yeah. Kalau ditanya trennya itu kemana ya, saya suka begitu pertama kali kita sentuh tentang ini BIM dan CDE ya, saya suka ngambil contoh film Iron Man, Iron Man dan Jarvis, alright. Basically for Iron Man kan, any control of the system in his building goes through Jarvis as AI, dan Jarvis ini controls the whole building. The relevance is that future mungkin nggak terlalu jauh, karena begini, kita mulai dengan 3D modeling of the system, of the building itself, of the infrastructure. 3D modelingnya selesai, captured properly untuk as-built, dan itu punya history of the kronologi bagaimana bangunan itu dibikin, dari desain, konstruksi, subsequently handing over. Pas handing over, itu semua ada informasi tentang kalau lampu itu model apa, mungkin Philips, penggantiannya setiap berapa tahun. Nah, itu untuk maintenance. Tapi, begitu kita kembali lagi ke data, begitu building itu selesai dan operasional, data itu konteksnya apa? Nah, di sana kita ngomong tentang digital twin. So digital twin is basically data yang kita kaitkan dengan IoT sensor, mungkin heat sensor, humidity sensor, atau occupancy sensor, dan segala macamnya itu. Data itu kita taruh di mana? Kalau misalnya kita punya sensor-sensor itu di bangunan, data itu kembali kemana? Nah, jawabannya kembali ke CDE itu lagi. Karena 3D model itu adalah representasi yang paling tepat untuk menghost data itu. Sebagai contoh, kita kalau misalnya ada data tentang security system, pintu A level 2 sedang terbuka. Nah, itu kan kalau kita baca sebagai manusia itu kan agak ribet, pintu A level 2 posisi apa sedang terbuka. Tapi kalau di 3D, kita just indicate pintu itu di level 2 sedang terbuka. Nah, itu simplification, it's oversimplification of the idea, tapi menurut saya digital twin itu adalah tujuannya. Dan begitu kita sentuh digital twin, kita hampir tak terbatas lah potensinya ya, karena itu ada tentang sensor, tentang operasional, tentang segala macam security dan segala macamnya. Tapi dari awal itu harus benar, dan praktis BIM itu membantu kita untuk membuat fondasi yang benar kalau kita mau menuju ke arah yang sana. Terus pertanyaan nomor 2, saya pendapat pribadi aja, tapi itu pendek aja. ISO 19650 ya bisa di-customize untuk per klien, karena mereka ISO 19650 itu hanya memberikan ide bagaimana struktur data itu harus dipakai, tapi mereka tidak mewajibkan bahwa kalau misalnya ada set 7 level ya ISO itu misalnya, itu harus 7 level. Enggak, certain organisasi mungkin 5 cukup, atau mungkin saya perlu 9. Tapi yang mereka share adalah dalam ISO itu, nah data organisasi data itu harusnya seperti ini. Ya, setiap data itu yang ada di dalam CDI ada tujuannya. Apakah itu data itu di-share untuk informasi, atau di-share untuk approval, atau ini udah data yang sudah obsolete. Nah, itu kan dari status code itu sendiri sudah langsung jelas gitu. Jadi data itu begitu masuk ke dalam CDI, jelas tujuannya apa, jelas fungsinya apa, dan dengan itu semua orang akan mengerti dengan gampang gitu. Yeah. Maybe Lok, you want to add something? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Budi, you brought up a lot of good points. Yeah, so the ISO 19650, although it's a guideline and it mandates the standards, but each company can tweak it a little bit, but not too far away from the standards itself. Also, the platform needs to also address other ISOs like ISO 5500 for asset management as well. So there must be a joint in terms of information between the different ISOs. Yeah. So the systems that you implement need to be able to cater for these kind of changes in future. Yeah. In terms of where what trends are in CDE, I totally agree with Pak Budi in terms of Jarvis. One other example is Jarvis can also help you do other checks, like what Fulcrum is doing. When you put in the BIM model, people are spending time just to check for clearance, spending time to check for authority requirements. So auto checkers are something very big now. In Singapore, there's a lot of different software just to do auto checking. So if your CDE can do auto checking, you reduce one software already, right? You reduce your complexity. The other trend that I see is a CDE plus FM system. Yeah. So at the moment, there's a lot of facility management system in place, like Maximo, CMMS, right? But that again is a second system. And when I talk about information management complexity, the lower number of systems that you manage, the easier it is to manage. So I actually see a future where CDE and FM systems are within one solution. Maybe under one umbrella. It could be like a suite, like Microsoft has Word, then there's Outlook, there is PowerPoint, Excel. When you copy and paste information from one system to another system, you don't lose the formatting. So same thing with the CDE and FM. It could be under one company, could be under one software, but it's becoming closer and closer together. Yeah. So those are my thoughts.
So just to share a little bit, since Mr. Lok touched on automated model checker, auto model checker itu seperti ini. Jadi kita ada tim di New Zealand yang udah involved directly untuk dengan background computational BIM dan segala macamnya. Apa yang terjadi adalah sebagai contoh misalnya building setback. Ya, building setback itu 6 meter dari jalan besar misalnya. Kalau misalnya jalan kategori 2 itu setbacknya 3 meter misalnya sebagai contoh ya. Jadi
SB,
begitu ya.
Padan bangunan DSB.
Ya. Ya. Jadi sama seperti Singapura, ada beberapa badan yang overview semua peraturan pembangunan dan segala macamnya. Nah, idenya adalah manusia tidak perlu cek lagi. Begitu model itu diupload, algoritma itu akan pick up building ini more than 30 meters, the setback should be 6 meters. Or this building is fronting category 1 road, the setback should be 3 meters dan segala macamnya. Parking turning radius, your car park size, the parking headroom, your definition of fire compartmentation. Kalau misalnya itu fire safety room, itu harus ada fire rated door dan segala macamnya. Itu semua dibangun secara otomatis. Jadi 3D model properly, run the algorithm, all the preset rules can be checked. Dan itu akan menghemat banyak sekali waktu untuk orang cek secara manual. Ya. Jadi itu sudah sedang terjadi sekarang. Ya.
Dan solusi tersebut ada di Fulcrum atau dengan platform?
Ya, jadi kita bangun solusi tersebut, fondasinya Fulcrum, bekerja sama dengan BCA tadi. Kita sekarang yang kita coba 150 peraturan itu, tapi untuk BCA mereka punya tujuan adalah 1.500 peraturan. 1.500 peraturan bangunan yang harus bisa dicek secara otomatis.
Wow.
Tapi untuk itu banyak stepnya,
Iya,
karena ya, modeling standarnya bagaimana.
ya.
Misalnya cek pertama.
Basicnya dulu, makanya
Iya,
kita harus paham
iya,
langkah-langkah yang
iya,
diusulkan oleh ISO itu tadi kan. Jadi minimal
iya,
basic itu
iya.
dapat, ketika dicek bisa dicek, jangan sampai udah basic kayak bener modelingnya nggak usah dicek kan percuma juga.
Iya, betul. Ya, jadi modeling standar, gimana kita model bangunan, gimana kita model satu ruangan misalnya itu slab dan kolom atau slab dan wall atau apa begitu, itu semua jadi pertanyaan dan harus distandarisasi.
Ya, betul. Ini menarik sekali. Saya kan tahunya platform itu kan harus terpisah tuh, ada yang platform yang seperti itu ya. Kalau saya kan Solibri kalau nggak salah.
Solibri, ya.
Solibri kan mirip-mirip ya dengan itu bisa didapat di Fulcrum ya, Pak.
Ya. Jadi waktu itu kita coba, karena Solibri salah satu kelemahannya adalah untuk membuat peraturan baru, kayaknya yang pemakainya harus mengerti sedikit programming. Ya, JavaScript dan segala macamnya. Yang kita bangun sekarang, kita mau peraturan itu dan pembangunan peraturan itu sesimpel mungkin sehingga arsitek yang melakukan itu bisa. Dan hal kedua adalah dalam hal kecepatan. Kalau itu file size yang 500 MB atau 1 GB, checking itu mungkin setengah jam, 1 jam. Kita mau itu turnaround dalam waktu 3 sampai 10 menit. Ya, jadi itu masa depannya. Kita sekarang itu semua di R&D kita. Ya.
Ini menarik sekali sih. Ini kaitan sama AI ya.
Iya, sama AI ya.
Karena memudahkan bekerja, dan bahkan tadinya bisa mengecekin satu hari cuma 100.000 gitu kan. Bisa berkali-kali lipat dengan satu sistem saja. Wah, ini menarik sekali. Memang Fulcrum ini buat Bapak Ibu dan teman-teman sekalian memang salah satu ya, malah saya bilang cukup market leader juga untuk perihal solusi untuk CDE yang bisa dikembangkan buat perusahaan Bapak Ibu sekalian. Oke, untuk tadi misalnya cukup jelas sekali. Nah, mungkin the next step nih. Nah, ini mungkin untuk Bapak berdua, Mr. Locke and Pak Budi juga. Sekarang gini, seberapa, saya nggak tahu ya bahasanya gimana. Jadi lebih kepada di step apakah untuk perusahaan tertentu itu sudah menerapkan CDE yang ya minimal menggunakan platform dari Fulcrum itu, sarannya di step apa? Apakah dari benar-benar dari awal sudah menggunakan, atau di step tertentu, atau bagaimana, ada saran tertentu nggak? Ini kaitan ke Pak Budi. Mungkin kalau Mr. Locke, apakah maturity level dari setiap perusahaan itu bisa langsung saja menggunakan CDE, atau dia menggunakan CDE tadi kan sempat dibahas bahwa CDE hanya untuk internal project saja, apakah sudah harus yang open sekali gitu, dan kaitan sama open BIM itu bagaimana? Gitu sih, mungkin Pak Budi mungkin bisa dibantu untuk ininya.
Yeah, so I think the question is that if an organization wishes to embark on this journey of IDD and Open BIM standard, how do they start? Is there sort of like a requirements where they need to be at a certain level before they actually embark on this journey? Or is there a step 1, 2, 3 that we can actually help them with and guide them along the journey to idealize this?
Okay, right. So in terms of maturity level, of course, it's something like you learn a new software, right? Or learn a new process. If let's say today you join another company, and the other company already has a CDE and they already have processes and all that, your own individual maturity, you have to immediately learn all these new things, right? So from my perspective, there is never a good time to start. You must start as early as possible, learn as much as you can, right? because there isn't a guideline to say, oh, you must have diploma in BIM to be able to join a company, correct? So your level of maturity needs to be constantly updated to learn new systems, learn terminology, learn how to make full use of it, right? So that's individual. At a company level, yeah, maybe the company has 2 or 3 staff, let's say an architect firm, and they're already using Google Drive, SketchUp, AutoCAD. At some point, they're already IT literate. They're not IT illiterate. They are familiar with it. They just need to be familiar with how to use it in maybe Fulcrum or how to use it in BIM 360. It's just a different tool. Yeah, it's just another different app, maybe less app. Now, today's world, everyone has a smartphone, correct? We don't use the old Nokia, just text-based. So everyone is very digitally enabled. So there is no, I think we are very close to good enough maturity to start immediately. You don't have to, maybe after 6 months or 1 year, you learn more. You just get started. Yeah. So in that sense, you don't need to think about level of maturity. Just think about how do I use BIM to help me win jobs? How do I use BIM to reduce the amount of manual work? How do you think about it that way? Don't think about learning BIM. You know what I mean? For example, if you're going on a trip, right, and the trip to maybe Iceland is 10,000 Sing dollar, you don't think about, wow, 10,000. You think about how to make the 10,000. Do I save more money? Do I sell more products? Eat less rice. 2 meals instead of 3 meals. You think about how to solve your problem.
Think about
Okay.
the goal. I mean,
Yeah, you think about your goal.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
first thing is the goal. Okay, it's very insightful, Mr. Law.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks.
about the perspective from Pak Budi.
Yeah, I think I agree with Lok. We start and think about the goal. Kalau menurut saya perjalanan BIM ini ya justru akan lebih mudah untuk organisasi yang baru atau tidak ada bagasi bagasi dalam hal begini. Dari pengalaman kita implementasi ini 3, 4, 5 tahun belakang ini, paling susah adalah change management-nya. Untuk ilustrasi, kalau kita mau gambar blank canvas akan selalu lebih mudah dibanding kalau kita udah coret-coret dan mau perbaikin gambar itu. Ya. Nah, the challenge is banyak organisasi yang besar sudah punya SOP yang sudah diikuti mungkin 10-20 tahun terakhir dengan perubahan dari desain dengan blueprint ke 2D drawing CAD. Nah, sekarang revolusi selanjutnya ke 3D dan BIM dan CDE itu sebenarnya tidak ada pilihan. Cepat atau lambat itu harus diikuti, ya. Karena kalau enggak ketinggalan, ya kan? Nah, jadi memang waktu paling tepat adalah sekarang. Kalau ada alokasi untuk resource atau apapun itu, harus mulai untuk alokasi ke BIM dan 3D. Ya, karena benar-benar kita tidak ada pilihan. Seluruh dunia menuju ke sana, dan pada akhirnya nanti 2D drawing dan segala macamnya akan obsolete. Sebagai contoh yang saya share di sini sekarang, untuk Singapura, project LTA yang kita involve itu, 2D drawing generation udah nggak boleh. Jadi semua 2D drawing harus generated dari 3D. Jadi sebagai dasar 3D-nya harus benar dulu, dan section cut atau elevation atau plan itu semua dari 3D.
Oke. Sudah tidak berbasis 2D dibalik ke 3D, tapi 3D jadi 2D.
Ya.
Bagus sekali, tetangga malah ya. Ini harus kita...
tapi cepat kayak saya bilang, kita involve untuk project di Thailand juga, Vietnam juga. Semuanya mungkin dalam waktu 1-2 tahun udah akan di level itu juga. Iya.
Betul. Yeah. Sorry, maybe for the floor there is no question again, I think. Okay, maybe we do the question, or maybe for the last time is about about of the panelists is I want to ask about the the closing statement. I mean,
Mhm.
because for this webinar, we
Okay.
first from Mr. Locke and then after to Pak Budi.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
So I think for closing remarks, information management, although it sounds very big, but you have to think about it, how you manage your time, how you manage information. Same like financial management, how you manage your own finances individually, how you manage finances for your company. Information management is the same thing. How you manage information for your BIM model. How do you manage information for your project? How do you manage information between different parties? If your information is not clear, there is no proper structure, there will be a lot of questions, queries, misinformation, misunderstanding. So if you do not pay attention to that, then your projects become more and more difficult. Yeah. Thank you.
Dari saya sendiri, kembali ke temanya kita, data. Kalau orang bilang big data revolution, sekarang applicable untuk finance, crypto, social media dan segala macamnya, itu semua big data. Alright. Untuk konstruksi big data definition adalah 3D dan BIM ini. Kenapa? Karena dengan itu, dengan 3D dan BIM itu, kita ada wadah untuk menampung semua informasi related ke bangunan, related ke project tersebut. Jadi kita secara industri kita tuh tidak terlepas dari revolusi yang sedang terjadi ini. Kenapa? Karena komputer semakin cepat, smartphone semakin pintar, dan segala macamnya. It's the time is now. Waktunya adalah sekarang untuk benar-benar belajar tentang data organization ini melalui BIM untuk industri ini. Karena ke depannya kita akan melakukan hal yang sama. Apa yang terjadi di logistik, manufacturing, dan segala macamnya akan menyentuh ke bagian konstruksi dan aset juga. Ya, begitu. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much. Once again, we thank you again for our speaker today. Terima kasih banyak Mr. Locke and Pak Budi atas closing statementnya. Okay, we are very thankful for all participants who watched our session until the end of the session. We apologize for the inconvenience during the session. And for the next session will be happening by our MC, Mas David. Okay, Mas David, I give it for the time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bayu, who has given us his time as our moderator for today's session. And also thank you to Mr. Budi Susanto as General Manager Liptout Asia PTE Ltd. And also Mr. Lai Fun Lok as Chief Executive Officer at REM IT Solution PTE Ltd. We still have the last webinar session at IEE VEXPO 2021 with the theme BIM Workshop Archilantis with Priority Tech. Webinar will be start at 1 p.m. For the visitor of IEE VEXPO, you can click Talk Series Hall at the main lobby. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our webinar session. If you want to watch this webinar, our webinar recording session will be sent to your email. I'm David Rindo, Archilantis, and Pamerindo are signing off. May the webinar give you insight and bring more the value to you. See you at the next session with the more interesting topics. Thank you and see you again.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.